They seem to be Alteryxing everything in sight. Please welcome to the stage David Ralph of Pepper Financial Group.
Thanks, Dean, and good morning, everyone. My name's Dave, and I'm part of a team at Pepper that supports our analytics community. For those that don't know Pepper, we're Australia's leading non-bank lender. We provide mortgages, car loans, and personal loans to underserved segments of the community, particularly those who are self-employed. For analytics at Pepper, 2019 was all about bringing Alteryx into the business and embedding it as our analytics platform of choice. Having worked with the platform before, we knew the potential that it had to transform the way that we not only interact with, but extract value from our data. But to get it in, we needed the right pitch. Before we get to the pitch, it was really important that we positioned Alteryx correctly in our broader data ecosystem. We wanted to ensure that Alteryx was seen as a partner or complementary platform to our warehouse, rather than a competitor. So having spent much time conversing and wordsmithing, the pitch that we came up with was, our warehouse is a great answer machine. What Pepper needs is a great question machine. Something that lets us tap into any data from any source and ultimately enables data to operate at the speed of our business. So for us, Alteryx is far more than a technology or a platform. It's an opportunity for our analysts to realise their full potential. Alteryx does this in three ways. The first is it frees our analysts from repetitive tasks. So it gives them their day back to be curious, to discover, to explore, and to ultimately unlock new value. The second is that Alteryx gives our analysts more data than they've ever had before, unlocking a whole world of opportunity. And the third is that Alteryx gives our analysts a single platform from data discovery to predictive analytics, letting them operate in a single linear flow. So, given Alteryx at Pepper is all about people, rather than share ROI or use case or value, I'm going to share some feedback that we received pretty soon after launching the product. So this feedback comes from Kim, one of our analysts in our customer experience space, who was doing some pretty cool stuff, but also had a fair chunk of her day taken up manually extracting data out of multiple systems, putting it together, sending it to the business to enable them to operate. So within the first week, I get an email from Kim. We've only had this for a couple of days, but Alteryx is already exceeding my expectations. Followed up pretty quickly with, I love this more than I did on day one. You need to ensure that this becomes our analytics platform at Pepper. Kim was also able to share an outcome or a use case that she'd achieved in that short period. With scheduling enabled, this will become a fully autonomous task, something that we've been unable to achieve for over 10 months now. So this kind of hit us on two levels. The first is just the platform's ability to immediately unlock value and solve business problems. The second though, and on a more personal level, is putting yourself in Kim's shoes. So there's obviously a certain level of frustration when there's a problem out there that you kind of think you can get to, but you just can't solve, and you can't solve for quite some time. Now flip that over and imagine how Kim was feeling when she left the office that day. Not only knowing she'd just nailed that problem, but being super pumped about what she was going to do with the platform tomorrow. Now the Kim story gets better. We were fortunate enough to have Dean join us a couple of months after we launched. Naturally, we had our analysts in the room, and at some point, Dean turns to Kim and says, Kim, how are you finding Alteryx? And the response, which will go down in legend at Pepper, and I think also with Dean and Alteryx, was, I love this so much, I'm going to name my babies Alteryx. And that for us really sums up what Alteryx means to our people at Pepper. Before I go, I'll leave you with one more anecdote around, I guess, the impact of Alteryx on the broader organisation. So we recently had a project review. A PM was sharing a data problem they had and something they need to resolve for the project to continue. One of our senior executives asked the question, can't you just Alteryx that? Now this is not our CIO, and this is not someone who's ever utilised a technology as a verb before. And for us, that really sums up what Alteryx means to the business. You know, it's more than a platform or a technology. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of working, it's a pathway to value, but more than that, it's enabling great outcomes for both our people and our customers. If you'd like to hear more about Pepper and our Alteryx journey, join me this afternoon in my breakout session at 2 o'clock with the Aware Group. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Your kid, Alteryx, I'll pay his or her way to college. Unless you're sending it to Harvard. Deal's off. So like the Gibb brothers, at some point in your journey, you're going to have to step into the spotlight, the advanced analytics spotlight. Maybe staying alive. That's what's going to keep you there, for sure. Advanced analytics. Now today, 60% of our customers have stepped into that advanced analytics spotlight using advanced tools in Alteryx, spatial tools, predictive tools, machine learning processes. Why? That's where the value is. It's no longer at the descriptive layer with Tableau dashboards or Click dashboards or Power BI. If the world is going to get eaten by machine learning, we've got to figure out how to get up that value chain. Now, data science really isn't that difficult. I think that the science community made it difficult for many, many years, but what we're seeing now, people learning Python and R everywhere you turn. I have a 4th grade class near my home, and they're teaching machine learning algorithms to 4th graders. So better get on board the Advanced Analytics Spotlight. Now, what I love about the data science world too is that it's also, like all the great journeys we've seen this morning, it's inclusive and it's diverse. You can come from any background, not just a data background. You can come from any functional area and any vertical, and today there's users in 90 different countries around the world because everyone's struggling with the same things. So don't be afraid to step into that spotlight. Now there's a gentleman that has stepped into that spotlight. He's amping up his career and his fellow workers' careers. They're driving value for their organization. Let's hear his personal journey and the company story now. Please welcome to the stage Matthew Budden of Super Retail Group.
Thanks, Adrian. So I guess the perfect place to start with that is that I'm actually not from a data background. I've worked in supply chain for over 17 years, mostly in operational works. So that ultimately led me into SRG. Now, SRG has already had Alteryx at that time. They were using it just to blend data sources and pull stuff out of our complex systems. But I come to that and we started off in a different journey. So we're giving some small scale tasks of looking after our warehouse and looking at our data and trying to make some improvements. That task sort of grew. What happened, as we started to pick it apart with Alteryx, a parallel piece of work was going on in the business about cost. That parallel piece of work and the consultants that did it looked at our work and said, actually, that's more accurate than what we can provide you. That effectively opened the door for us. What come in the next 12 months after that was a journey where we pulled apart the entire supply chain for our business. We understand cost to a level that hasn't been seen before. The sheer volume of transactional data and various data sources that we've had to use to do this is immense. We had to put all kinds of things together, stuff that was in systems, stuff that come out of warehouse transactional data, some that come out of text files. It was crazy. We had to present this to our C-suite executives because we got it to a point that it was very good. When we went through it with Alteryx, and Alteryx really was a tool to do that. Because of the workflow approach, we could sit there and piece them through it and gave them acceptance and they understood how it worked. It never would have got off the ground if we weren't able to do that. There was commentary that was fed back to us I was told this couldn't be done. In 30 years in the business, I've never seen this kind of thing happen. That was music to our ears. It really was something that drove us. After this, our GM invested in us, sent us to Inspire in Nashville. That was an eye-opening experience. It also gave us some opportunity and some training that we'd never had. He also cleared the noise. We started working on this project pretty much exclusively. We then had to present to our board. Now, when we presented to the board, they looked at it and they said, oh, that's great, it's just a piece of static work, we can use it, happy days. But it wasn't. We said to them that, no, this is not static, this is repeatable, we can set this up and we can keep this set up and ready. They looked at us and said, oh my God, and it was the turning point, because not is this a tool that's used to change blended averages used for budgeting, this is a live tool that they can use to track the performance of the business and help it grow. Ultimately, this year alone, it's scheduled to deliver about $1 million worth of savings. We've doubled our team, we've invested in server, and we're starting to ingrain self-service analytics into the supply chain. Our future is with predictive and spatial. We've started with spatial and done a little bit with that, but we're hoping to try and get that to grow, and then obviously start to delve into predictive. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matthew. You were making analytics and retail great again. That's awesome. So somewhere along your modern analytics journey, you're going to need to turn your practice up a notch, up to 11. I guess you could call it your Saturday night fever. And I know many of you are wondering, what does turning it up to 11 even mean? Well, I think it's when your YXMDs, your macros, your apps, your APIs meet the needs of IT with governance and security and scalability, with automation, so that you can get back to answering harder questions against more data. We know you can see the benefits of turning it up to 11 by eliminating waste and financial results as you see here. And a lot of this has to do with collaboration on server, where you can share your work to get people up to speed quickly so that you can iterate challenges and problems and make them better to drive more value over time. We know that this works. Alteryx has proven that analytics is a social experience. Anyone not on community.alteryx.com? You want to be on community because it's driving value for everybody. We're seeing 111% year-over-year growth in community usage. People who are amplifying everything in their path, from predictive capabilities to machine learning capabilities to amping their skills around geospatial and just learning the 270 tools that exist and ways that you can create new tools for your own benefit. We know that it also has a benefit for your business because the people who are involved in community expand 3 times more than the people who are not involved in community. So you'll start to get that networking effect that's important for driving business. So if you want to turn it up to 11, make sure that you're active in internal and external communities. Now you want to hear from one of the world's most innovative banks. They're doing some jive talking with their analytics. Please welcome to the stage Adam Predijan from Macquarie Bank.
Thanks, Ian. Good morning, everyone. My name's Adam Predijan. I work at Macquarie in our digital transformation and data division. Bit of a mouthful, to be honest. Macquarie is a very diverse business. We operate in over 31 markets around the globe. We have just over 15,000 people spread all over the globe working with us. From energy markets in the US, right through to building the latest generation of open banking APIs here in Australia. Green investments in Europe, through to mobile phone leasing. Our portfolio is very diverse. And our data sets, our information that sits underneath that portfolio is just as diverse. And we see that as a key enabler for our overall digital transformation. One of the other key enablers are our people. Our teams that are working around the globe using this data day in and day out, that are operating on it, that know it intimately. For us, those people are our data experts. And a key thing that we're focused on is how do we grow those data experts? How do we help them to be able to unlock the value inside of those diverse data sets and help us really to crank our digital transformation up to 11? So for us, we're focused on 3 key areas to make that happen. So number 1 is ensuring that we have the right tooling to be able to enable our digital transformation. Number 2 is the right training. And the final piece is our environment, our culture. So in terms of the tools, so we're using a variety. We're focused on how do we get the right tools into the right hands of our people, ensuring that if they're producing simple reports from small data sets, it's really easy. If we're doing something more complex, more intricate, larger data sets, it's just as simple. The second piece around training is not only about teaching people how to use the right tools, but also to ensure that they know the basis of data science, to really grow that citizen data science that data literacy across our organisation. And to foster and encourage a community, just like Dean was talking about, we're also growing a community of data experts inside of Macquarie with thousands of people sharing insights, sharing ideas, sharing their learnings across the globe. And the final piece for us is our culture. So Macquarie prides itself on having an innovative culture. For us, we're enhancing that and we're adding a data-curious culture. So making sure that everyone is asking data-driven questions, increasing our data literacy, encouraging people to challenge the norm, challenge the status quo, and use data to be able to tell stories. And this is having an impact already. We're already seeing around the globe our teams building out hundreds of workflows, building out data pipelines to automate reporting and automate insights that previously might have taken weeks or days and now take mere minutes or seconds. And we're starting to see some quite interesting insights come out of areas that we wouldn't have expected before. So for example, we have quite amazing workspaces around the globe. We're now using data to look at how we can actually enhance them even further, to build excitement, to make them even more enjoyable for our staff. So our data journey is underway. We're quite excited by where we've got to already and the way that our data is fueling our overall digital transformation. And you can do it too. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Adam. I would say you're not turning it up to 11, you guys are turning it up to 12. They flew the entire executive team from Macquarie to our headquarters last fall in Irvine, California. It was the most spectacular meeting I have ever been in with a customer, going around the room. Every use case, every ROI was more spectacular than the previous discussion. So thank you very much for what you're doing at Macquarie. So at some point, once you've played to your passion, you've stepped into the spotlight, you've turned it up to 11, these are all prerequisites for success in digital transformation. But at some point, you're going to have to get it all together. You're going to have to build that data science and analytics culture where people see data as an asset and analytics as a prowess. Here's why. According to the World Economic Forum in 2018, companies around the globe, 29% of all work product was done by machines. It's estimated that by 2022, 42% is going to be done by machines. I believe that we'll never get to machine intelligence until we amplify human intelligence first. So it's important that you start to build that data science and analytics culture where people are willing to get curious and creative and take some risks to solve magnificent problems that the organizations face. Now, for some organizations, this journey is sequential through these steps, and others it's kind of an all-in philosophy where maybe you're playing catch-up and the half-life of enterprise life is worrying you, and so you spend your time and money to go all in to harness that networking effect of people, data, technology, and processes. And it boils down to leadership who actually sees the opportunity to do the right thing. Done well, it's like a perfectly choreographed John Travolta disco hustle. Consider our final customer journey a little bit more tamed down than a John Travolta disco hustle. But I would like to welcome to the stage Greg Whitby of Catholic Education. Greg?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here. I'm the CEO of a system of schools in non-government schools in Western Sydney. I just want to put a simple proposition to you. We have a global crisis on our hands, and it's not the current disease that's spreading. It's about education. And particularly in the sector that I'm involved in the school sector. Our schools are becoming increasingly irrelevant in the lives of the young people that we serve. They've reached their use-by date. They're an artefact of an era that's long since gone. They still operate in a rational, machine, mechanistic way about inputs, throughputs and outputs, and they pretend that the world hasn't changed. Well, we have news for you. It has, and you're going to become irrelevant unless you address the simple fact that we need to bring school and learning into the 21st century. Consider this point. In New South Wales and across Australia, the annual spend on education is about in excess of $100 billion a year. And guess what? It's climbing. What about performance? It's declining. And it's been that way for the last 60 years. It's not that we don't have data. We have heaps of data, but we're drowning in data because we're still using spreadsheets and analogues approach to the problem. Every improvement methodology that's been put in place to try and to fix this problem is backward looking. The improvement model, those of you who are in education know it, we just had policy announcements, we're going to have better trained teachers, we're going to have more teachers, we're going to do this, we'll test the teachers, we'll test the kids, we'll do everything, and guess what? It'll cost more money and it doesn't attack the central issue that schools need to move into the 21st century. So this drowning in data is causing a problem because we can't mount the proposition and develop the narrative that we're going to need to do the change process. And that's where we've come into contact with Alteryx. We've determined that Alteryx is going to be the engine that will lead us to the transformation. It will break the nexus about backward-looking improvement processes. And it's such a powerful tool because it fits with our learning theory about inquiry. Learning to learn by doing the work and nobody doing the work for you. It's an inquiry methodology, and Alteryx sits directly in that space. We've developed our own data strategy, and we've appointed very recently a new role called data intelligence. I agonised over that name for a long time. I didn't want data scientist, a data expert. I wanted to try and make the point that this is hard intellectual work. It takes severe grunt to remedy the crisis that we're in. And it's all about intelligent use of data. And data that can bring together and condense a whole range of sets so that we can interrogate it and apply it in practical ways. A simple example. We have a higher school certificate in this state. You might be interested to know that it was designed in 1957, implemented in the early 1960s, and it's still going strong, as if the world hasn't changed. Well, we receive a whole lot of data from the HSC, and which is loosely used to make some judgments about whether schools are doing what they should do. In the past, it'd take us about a month, 6 weeks to have a look and analyse that data. And we'd only analyse just the performance and the averages, nothing about interrogating it deeply. We can now do that in 15 minutes. But what we can also do is bring in the geocoding. We can bring in fees, we can bring in the socio-economic data and put it in and develop a rich picture that will tell us more about what ATAR that they have received. Very powerful. The second one that I give you as an example is attendance data. This one is just a classic. Most schools still mark the roll, and somebody has to go through the roll, collaborate build the data, and then find out who's here and look at enrolment patterns. And we might find a month or two later somebody realises little Johnny hasn't been at school. So we've used Alteryx and found some really interesting things because it comes to the questions that you ask. When we did get real-time data, we can tell you real-time now at this point on my phone, I can go in and say who's there and who's not there because we have that capability. The supposition was, and the proposition was, well, if kids are absent for long periods of school, their learning will suffer. Well, certainly there was part of that, but the really frightening thing we found that some kids who had long absence actually did better. So what's that tell you about what's going on in the classroom? See the way it's just fundamentally shifted how we need to look at this thing. NAPLAN data, and this is where we move into the real game changer as far as I'm concerned, is in the predictive analytics area. The NAPLAN is an Australia-wide program that's involved that tests kids at different levels. The NAPLAN data, we ran a test last year or the year before we did HSC and NAPLAN, and we looked at bringing a whole range of different data points together to see if we could predict the performance of the students in the upcoming NAPLAN test and the HSC. We did the same sort of thing. Guess what? The prediction came back about 92% accurate. So what's that telling us is that we're going to condemn whole cohorts of kids to learn the same thing that they already know so that we can test them and get the result that we know we're going to get. What questions do that raise for you? We needed another approach, and this is the cultural issue, and I couldn't agree more about the name changing the culture. The way we're going to do this is to create a narrative that says we need to change the whole process. We've appointed a new role called a data storyteller to help us build and answer and engage people in that discussion about what it's saying about the nature of how we learn. We want to put the tools into the hands of the people who make the difference, not me, the people who make the difference, the teachers, so that they can make the intelligent decisions and interrogate the data and build out so that we can make sure that we arrest the tide, make schools relevant in the lives of young people, because that's what's going to answer the problems we have in the future. What I want to do is move from suspicion to proposition. This is the whole issue in data for me. People have got, I suspect that this is what it means. That no longer can cut the mustard. We have to get down to actual propositions. What is it telling us? What is the action need? And I have one piece of advice for you. Mutate now and avoid the rush. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Greg reminded me of one of the most profound things that any customer has ever said to me. He said, "Dean, I love Alteryx because it rewards me for the way I think." And that's how you drive a cultural shift in your organization. Now, regardless of where you're at in your modern analytic journey, your instrument of choice is Alteryx, and we are super excited about the innovations that we're delivering in the platform in the 20.1 release and future releases and soon to be innovations. I want you to hear about it now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Senior Vice President of Product, Ashley Kramer.